This is the Brisbane Lions Fancast with Dom Fay and Michael Whiting.
Yes, welcome to another week of the Fancast, and unfortunately, Mike, we are sitting here again a little bit lost for words, almost.
Might be hard to fill the show today, wouldn't it?
Just a little bit.
With any sort of positivity anyway. Hard to be positive after you've been belted by 20 goals on the back of a 10-goal loss the week before, but that's what we're faced with, and that's what the Lions have to confront, and very little time to turn it around. Probably a good thing that it's only a 5-day break this week. You can get rid of the Port Adelaide result and move straight on to Richmond a lot quicker than normal.
Yeah, we will be joined by Lewis Taylor, one of the very few shining lights from the game, a little later in the show. But where do we even start to dissect that match, Mike? I mean, it was just... I looked at the records, and I believe under Michael Voss's reign, we never had a 100-point or more loss. It was always... we had some thrashings, but never by that much. So it's quite a while since we've had a loss by that kind of margin. Where do we go from that?
Well, it capitulated pretty quickly. I think they were very competitive for the first quarter. Port Adelaide started opening up in the second quarter, and then, like Justin Lepich said in the post-match press conference, I think people start losing their structure, and I hate hearing that word as a journalist, and you'd probably hate hearing it more as a fan, but people just start going off and doing their own thing then. Everyone starts to chase kicks and go into self-preservation mode, which is spot on, particularly when it's such a young list, and we don't want to sit here and preach patience, but that's the reality of it. The list is so young, and with the injuries, which I'm sure we'll get to in a second, that's just going to make it even younger. But I just made some quick notes before we came on and thought about just the number of inexperienced players in that team on the weekend. We had Louis Taylor, who we're talking to shortly, James Aish, Nick Robinson, Tommy Cutler playing his first game, Marco Paparone, who we spoke to last week. Sam Mays is only in his second year. He's played 22 games now, I think, and yet he's probably mid-tier as far as experience goes. Jordan Lyle, 23 or 24 years old, but only played 20 games. Jackson Payne, a handful of games. Justin Clark still. So there's 9 or 10 players there that have just played less than 20 games. When Justin Lepich talks about players going into self-preservation mode, I guess they're the type of guys that are going to do... We don't want to sound like we're portioning blaming by any stretch, but it's just the fact that it's such a young team with so few games into them, and trying to understand what Leper wants in a big picture is so difficult. And once the goals start running against you, it is so tough to turn around.
Yeah, and you can tell that there's quite a few of our senior core who are still struggling to get their head around the game plan and out of form a bit at the moment. I mean, we've spoken about the defenders, but it's beyond that. I'd say the majority of our senior players, and they'd probably admit it themselves, have not been anywhere near their best form right now. Tom Rockcliffe probably the exception to that. But outside of that, it's been slim pickings for good players in that side right now, and that's probably combined with the young list, which is almost... the team we're fielding is almost expansion side like.
It's not far off.
Yeah.
It's not far off. Like we think about how young they are, you look at the other end, we've got John O'Brien playing his 250th this weekend, but then there's not much after that. There's Brent Maloney, Joel Patfull, Jed Adcock, and that's about it as far as experience goes. So pretty thin there, but still you've got to put up a better performance than that. It's an AFL game and you're losing by 20 goals. That's... No matter which way you cut it, that's not really acceptable, is it?
Not at all. So I suppose then, obviously, you've got two concerns. You've got the immediate concern of Richmond on Thursday, and then you've got the longer-term concern of what is this season shaping up to be. Now, there have been quite a few potentially optimistic Lions fans pointing to Justin Lepich being assistant coach at Richmond when they first were under Damien Hardwick's reign, and obviously I think they had 7 or 8 rounds where they were beaten often quite comprehensively while trying to learn his new game plan. So people are saying, well, it's a similar type game plan. Maybe Leper up here now is having same sort of issues.
It took a long time for Richmond. We do have to remember that. And I don't think there's any sort of panic stations by any stretch. It's 4 games in, and the way I look at it, I think this year's almost a free hit for Leper. I don't think there's any expectations, particularly now with the injuries. Like, that was something you couldn't factor in at the start of the year. There's no Daniel Rich for the season, and now the news that Matthew Leuenberger will miss for 10 to 12 weeks. Pierce Hanley's out for a couple of weeks. To me, that's the 3 most influential players, notwithstanding the contributions of Tom Rockcliffe. But those 3 guys are so influential for different reasons. And to now be missing them, Daniel Merritt suspended, Brent Staker out for an indefinite period still, just things you couldn't factor in at the start of the year. So I think Brisbane's probably had to change their expectations from that mid-packer, and if everything goes really well, who knows, to let's be realistic, and there's a whole heap of kids being exposed to the senior level and to a new game plan. So I think the expectations have probably had to shift based on those injuries.
After round 1 or 2, I can't remember which one it was, I asked you how you thought Lepper would be feeling right now as he sat there as a senior AFL coach after his first game or two, and you said you think he'd be feeling pretty good. I mean, no win yet, but competitive against two of the best sides. Review that after round 4. What do you think's going through Lepper's mind right now?
What the bloody hell have I got myself in for?
Yeah, it wouldn't be far off that.
Difficult start. I think we saw the first little signs of frustration of a head coach in the coach's box on Saturday. Every time the cameras cut to Lepper in the first few weeks, he's been quite composed, but we saw a few little frustrations and a few expletives coming out of the coach's box on Saturday, but that's understandable. I mean, I'm sure the players are frustrated, same as him. I go back to the injuries and whatnot, but he hasn't expected a lot of these things, but that's what you're dealt, and that's what you've got to deal with. So it's a rebuilding phase. It's another term that I'm sure fans don't like hearing, and it's probably a hard realisation to face, but it'll take a long time to turn this around, and you've got to look big picture and think, well, games are going to get put into these kids, and we're going to find out pretty quickly if they're good enough or not.
So, look, I mean, it is only 4 rounds into the season, but have you now given up any hope of finals this year? Is it that just not on the radar for 2014?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's unrealistic to expect finals now. Like, we touched on that elite talent, the Rich, Hanley, Leuenberger, particularly Rich and Leuenberger. I mean, they're out for Rich for the whole season and Leuenberger for 2/3 of what's left of it, if everything goes well. So,
and we've seen with Louis in the past that injuries have extended on a bit longer than normal too, so he may miss the whole one too.
They can drag on, and they're crucial pillars of Lepic's game plan. Two of his big things he came in with was, I want to play 2 ruckmen. That's now out the window because there's no options. And the other one was he wanted a very good ball user coming out of the back half, i.e. Daniel Rich and Pierce Hanley. Pierce Hanley will be back in a couple of weeks, everything going well, so that shouldn't be a major drama. But they're 2 big planks of his game plan and how he wanted to structure up out the window within the first month. So it's not a case of throw the kids in and see what happens, but they have to understand what Justin Leppich wants over the next 3 years. And I guess if they're going to learn on the job, and they're going to have to learn the hard way.
Yeah, definitely. I think it could be an aspect of taking 1 step back to take 2 steps forward, something along those lines.
Is that something you think fans cop? I know that sometimes you don't want to hear it, but like, what are your expectations from now? There's 18 matches left.
Yeah, so
what do you think?
I'm sitting here relatively content that there is talent in this list and that it will build to something. I think many fans are beyond frustrated because they're thinking, well, hang on, we went through this rebuilding phase. We did this in 2010 and then into 2011 and also 2012. We're meant to be coming out of this now, not doing it again. And I can understand that frustration, but it's a similar... people, Carlton fans went into this year thinking they were a premiership chance. Their club was saying they were a premiership chance. They're now having to live with the reality that you just have to readjust your expectations. And I'm thinking with some Brisbane fans, it may be a similar reality. You just have to realise that we are not in a rebuilding phase, but definitely in a phase of consolidation, I suppose, with some new young kids coming in and not really in a phase where we can challenge right now.
I certainly think before the season started, we chatted as well about the fact that the 5 kids that left, and we hate to harp on about it, but it's a reality that's what happened, and it's an issue. We thought that might hurt the team and the club maybe in a year or maybe 2 or 3 years' time, but it might hurt them right now, because instead of when injuries happen, you're able to call on a Jared Pollock or a Billy Longer or a Elliot Yeo or someone that's got a couple of years under their belt. You're having to call on a Tom Cutler or a Nick Robertson or someone and throw them all in at once instead of having a little staggered approach there. So just with the injuries and the way the cards have fallen, those players leaving might hurt a little sooner than we thought. But that's the way it is, and it might mean a tough year this year.
It may well, but all hopefully will be good signs for the future is what I think most Lions fans can look forward to. And I was chatting to a friend of mine who is a fellow Lions fan this week, and we were both chatting about how bad the situation currently is for the club, and he said, you know what, this really does have all the hallmarks of a traditional brilliant Lions stirring victory this Thursday night, doesn't it?
Well, let's think about it, Dom. It's Brownie's 250th.
Yeah, 250
Everyone, if you can't get out to the Gabba on Thursday night, you're kidding yourself. The big bloke, let's be realistic, it'll be his last milestone game. It's hard to see him getting to 300, so I mean, he has been an absolute champion of this club in his 15th season. Absolute legend of the game, and I think that, I mean, you hope the players will lift for him. You hope the fans will get out there and support in huge numbers. And you never know, Richmond's in very scratchy form themselves. So I can't wait to see the big dog run out there on Thursday night and, not lead his team to victory in the sense of being the skipper, but lead his team in terms of the way he plays.
Yeah, look, it's going to be a very interesting game on Thursday night. It is our showpiece game for the year on free-to-air TV. Anything could happen, so this could be the start of a resurgence of sorts, and I think most Lions fans are hoping that may well happen.
Brownie said in his press conference on Tuesday that he wouldn't mind an Ash McGrath style after the siren to celebrate his milestone game, just like Ash did for his 200. So
yeah.
that'd be a hell of a story, wouldn't it?
No complaints here if that happens. We'll be chatting to one of the young stars of the club, Lewis Taylor, right after this on the Fancast.
The best way to keep track of everything Lions is to head to lions.com.au. It's the first place to find the latest Lions news and videos, get the lowdown on upcoming games, results and player stats. There's also great ways to interact with live chats, downloads and Player of the Year voting updates. And with a social media hub, you can connect with all the Lions social media activity. lions.com.au. Everything Lions, all in one place.
We're joined on the Fancast this week by what many people consider to be the steal of last year's draft and a great player in the early phases of this year for the Lions, Lewis Taylor. Welcome to the show, Lewis. How have you found the start to AFL footy?
Yeah, thanks very much, mate. I've loved every minute, to tell you the truth. It's been pretty tough. I come into into the Lions with a bit of an interrupted pre-season, just on the sidelines there for a while. But yeah, obviously worked pretty hard to get into the main group and that sort of thing, and loving it.
Can you just tell us about your pre-season, Louis? Because I was down at your training an awful lot during that pre-season. You spent more times hitting the boxing bags, the boxing gloves, and running laps than probably anyone else there. It must have been a tough sort of initiation those first few months.
I was, tell you the truth, I was a bit sick of the old boxing gloves and the watt bikes. So, so I come in, I had surgery on my foot, and they were pretty keen to take it pretty slow early on. So, done a lot of boxing and a lot of watt bike and that sort of thing, and which was good. It kept the fitness up, and then obviously went into full training with the boys and that sort of stuff, which was 10 times better. So,
as for the move to Brisbane, have you struggled with that at all, or has that been a pretty easy settling in process for you?
Yeah, look, it's been pretty easy for me. I've lived away from home before, so it was no real drama for me, and so it was an easy transition.
Mate, you said you've loved every minute of it so far. I guess copping the floggings the last couple of weeks can't be too much fun. Can you tell us what the vibe is around the group and how you've taken those last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, we showed some pretty good signs sort of early on against some pretty good opposition, but if we can start to put fourth-quarter efforts together, we'll obviously be a lot better out and obviously start winning a lot more games. So the boys aren't too bad. We just regroup and focus on the things we need to focus on each week, and go out there and give it 100%, I suppose.
Without sort of harping on last week too much, Louis, you would have reviewed it by this stage. What did you take out of it, and where did you fall down in that final three quarters? Because things sort of certainly fell apart after the quarter time.
Yeah, we looked at it, and good first quarter. We started following our game plan, using our kicks, switching the play, and that sort of thing, which was good. But just sort of after that sort of first quarter, and we sort of went away from our game plan a little bit. Weren't hitting those kicks that we want to hit and getting a run off that half back line, and we missed a couple of kicks, and that sort of put us back into our shell a little bit, where Lepper's happy for us to make a mistake and just have a crack at those kicks and try and open up opposition up like that.
So do you think at the moment it is still just an issue of getting used to that game plan, a new game plan at the club, obviously, not just for you, but for the senior players as well? Do you think that is what's causing most of the issues right now?
Look, we can't entirely blame it on the game plan, but it is still new, and, we're trying to, Lepper's obviously brought it in, and we're trying to work on that as best we can. So, there's a lot of other things as well, like contested ball. We lost contested ball on the weekend again, so we just need to work on things like that as well.
It's John O'Brown's 250th match on Thursday night, so it's huge from a club standpoint. You must give yourselves a bit of a sniff of beating Richmond because they've struggled in the first month as well.
Yeah, obviously they've had a tough start to the year as well, so that doesn't mean we're going to take it any lighter and that sort of thing. And obviously Brownie's big 250th, which is a great effort, so he'll be up and about, and hopefully we can get a lot of supporters there and that sort of thing, and give it a real red-hot crack. So.
On a personal level, have you been told what's expected of you this year? Are you expected, or do they hope for you to play the majority of the season, or is it much more just a see how it goes kind of approach?
Yeah, look, there hasn't been really any sort of pressure being put on me at all, which is good. Blackie and Leff and that have been really good. They just sort of said, go out there and just play your role was the main thing. So just sort of do that team role, and that should hold you in good stead for the year. So, yeah, big thing for all the young sort of players is just stick to your role and do the team things first.
Mate, you're a big fan of the socks up, Louis. Where does that come from?
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth, I've never really worn them down. So, it's not something that's just happened this year, but it sort of happened all my life, and just kept rolling with it, I suppose. So.
I did put out on Twitter that we were getting you on the show, and Lions Di has tweeted in, and she wants to know what's helped you adjust to the pace of the game with your improvement over the few weeks so far.
Look, I suppose training early on was a big step up, and that obviously helps you in good stead for the intensity and pace that you need to play at. Sort of being around, Brett Maloney and Jack Redden and Pierce Hanley and all those sort of types, they sort of carry up to that level as well, which is good. So, I haven't found it easy. It's been a pretty tough sort of pre-season and that sort of trying to get up to that pace and that standard. But, loving every minute of it, as I said. And,
I'd just like to finish with one more because I know there's been a number of fans who were still concerned about the young players leaving of last year. As a young player who has come into the club over the off-season, how have you found the welfare department in terms of settling you in and making you feel at home in Brisbane? Has it been something that fans should not worry about because they're doing a very good job, do you reckon? Yeah, look, mate, to tell you the truth, there's not one thing to worry about. From all reports from all the boys, we've come in, all the older sort of boys, and, they've been great, all the staff and everyone like that's just been real welcoming. I couldn't be happier. And, me and James H living with Rowan Buick and Daniel Rich, which has been good. So, look, the welfare side of things is spot on, I think, at the Brisbane Lions, and, the fans shouldn't have anything to worry about. That's great to hear. We can't wait to see you running around in Lions colours for many years to come. All the best for Thursday, and thanks for joining us on the show today.
No worries. Thanks very much.
This week's game is tomorrow night at the Gabba against Richmond. It is the big clash each year. We didn't quite get it last year because of it just didn't work out with the way the season fell, but it's good to have it back this year against Richmond now. How do you rate our chances, Mike?
I think there's a slim chance, Dom. That's the most I'm going to give the Lions. And that slim chance comes because of the fact that I think Richmond have struggled as well, and they don't look that confident to me. They've sort of been chipping it around and not taking the game on, and I think they'll come up here with the expectation to win, which will throw a little more pressure on them. So I give the Lions a slim chance. I think Richmond will win, though. Those outs for Brisbane are just too big for me. No Leuenberger, no Hanley. We've discussed Rich being out. That's just too much to overcome. So do you think the Lions have got much show on Thursday, Dom?
I think we're, again, with you, probably a slim chance, but I think it will be something, we've said before that you'll know within the first few minutes whether we're in the game or not. I don't think that's going to be the case here because we could come out like we did against Port Adelaide, have a great first quarter, then fall off. I mean, if we win this game, I don't think it will be clear that we are going to win until, there is a minute to go. It's going to be that kind of a game for us, I think. I can't see us winning by a heavy margin, but it is possible. They really need to bounce back and just show something. Whether that's a win or not's debatable, but they just need to show some improvement. Yeah, we would all like to see that. The game is a 7:50 bounce. It is, as I said, at the Gabba on Thursday night. No excuse for not getting along to this one. It's a public holiday the next day. It's Brownie's 250th. This is the one to go to this year, I think. Get out and watch him. You can't. Brisbane owes Jonathan Brown so much for the service he's provided. I know how much he wants to stick around and see this team rebuilt while he's still at the club. So
He's got the club as his number one interest, and I think the fans should show him the same sort of gratitude.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. The reserves also play on Saturday, 1:30 p.m. at Aspley. They have mixed form so far this year, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I think that is where the loss of the homesick players is really taking its toll right now, but that will be interesting to monitor. We will be back next week to review the Richmond game. Fingers crossed, Mike, that we can get a win there.
Let's hope so. It'll make this show a little more cheery.
It would, definitely. Otherwise, we'll be looking forward to the St Kilda game over in New Zealand. For now, though, this is the Fancast. Bye.